Hey there, welcome back to Mindful May. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, my name is May. I make all kinds of DIYs out of secondhand materials, usually thrifted, sometimes gifted, and today is no different. I am making a midi skirt with a slit and an elastic waistband. I thrifted this fabric a while back. It was like $2. Really excited to turn it into a fun little skirt to wear with a tank top or a graphic cropped tee. I think it's gonna be a summer staple. So let's jump into the video. Let's talk about materials. You're gonna need some fabric, obviously. My fabric ended up being about 56 inches wide and 36 inches long. Honestly, I just held it up and wrapped it around myself and thought, hey, this could be a skirt. Let's grab some fabric. I don't have a great option for matching thread. I think the yellow would be like fun contrast. The brown would blend in a little bit more. You'll need some scissors and pins. And then for the waistband, some elastic. 1 inch, I've got some that I thrifted, some white and black. We'll see what I go with. For taking measurements, we're starting with the widest point of my body, which is my hips. My hips measure at 40 inches, and I'm going to add 16 inches for some roominess and extra flow to my skirt. My grand total is 56 inches in width. Next up is the smallest part of your waist, which is usually right at your belly button. My waist measures at 32 inches and I'm going to add 1 inch. That brings me to 33 inches. That's where I will cut my elastic. Lastly, the skirt length. Again, I'm utilizing just my 1 yard of fabric, so I'm gonna make it work. I know that I need 1.5 inches of extra fabric for the waistband, and then I need another 1/2 inch extra for the bottom hem. So you'll take the desired length of your skirt and add 2 extra inches to that. So if my desired length is 34 inches, I'll add 2 inches to bring me to 36 inches in length. Now to assemble, we'll take the long part of the skirt, so this is my widest portion. We're gonna fold it in half with the wrong side of the fabrics together, and then we're gonna pin down from the waistband to the top of where our slit is going to be. I want my slit to measure from my belly button down to the top of the slit 19 inches. But we can't forget the additional waistband portion, which is going to add 2 inches, putting a pin in at the 21 inch mark. That's where I'm going to stop and my slit is going to start. So the first line we're going to sew is from the waistband to the top of the slit, and we're going to sew this seam with a 1 inch seam allowance. Okay, I decided to go with brown because I want a more subtle thread. Ooh. Okay, so I have this weird selvage edge. Whether I had it or not, I would sew this seam at a 1 inch seam allowance because later when we go to roll the slit, I want a lot of space to roll. So we're going to sew this edge with a 1 inch seam allowance. I'm just trying to get over this like weird purpley brown line, get that out of my way. Let's start at the top. Forward and back stitch always, and sew on down. Forward and back. And we're done with this section. Okay, so we've just sewed our first line and now I'm going to iron open the slit. I don't know what I'm working with, so I'm turning my heat down a little bit, maybe like the medium heat. Ooh, there's a spider on the floor. Okay, so we're currently working on the inside of the skirt. I'm just gonna press this open just to get us started. You can press open the rest of the seam if you'd like. Okay, it's sitting nice and pretty and flat. As I go about rolling this, give y'all a little life update. First of all, we're gonna double roll this all the way up. I like to iron the full 1 inch seam allowance. So I pull back a full inch and iron, and then I just tuck this little piece into the crease, fold over, and I know I've got a nice clean double rolled hem. Back to my life update. If you're new here, this is my sewing room. This is my studio. It's quite small. I think it's 8 feet by 8 feet. We are renting this house and it used to be a porch. I think it got, screened in but never insulated. So I get really hot in the summer and really cold in the winter, and I get a lot of bugs in here. and it's the grossest. But my husband and I just started the process of building a house, and we picked out all of our finishes and everything with a local builder, and that should take about 8 to 9 months, and we're really excited. So it's gonna have 3 bedrooms. Someday we hope to have a family, but for now one of those rooms is going to be a sewing room, and I'm very excited. Okay, that is all pinned into place. This is the rolled hem. You could continue this all the way up, continue folding. I'm just gonna sew in a little square here. When I go up this side seam, I'll turn, pivot, and sew down. And then I'm gonna pin the rest of the hem with the same double rolled edge. I'm probably gonna do a bit of a tighter roll, more of a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I just want the skirt to be as long as it can with the small amount of fabric I have. So I'm gonna do a small roll on the end, and then we can sew it up. Starting at the bottom left corner of the skirt, I'm sewing all around the bottom hem. I've made it to the slit. I'm going to pivot up to sew up the slit. And sewing up the left side gave me an idea of a project that I recently did. If you want a really lovely, clean looking seam, you could continue a parallel line all the way up this rolled hem, then do the same thing on the other side. It would look something like this and could be a fun way to hide your raw seams if you don't have an overlocker or serger, or maybe you have a stiff or uncomfortable fabric and you want to tuck those raw edges in. This could be a great way to do that. Once we get to the slit, I'm going to pivot, sew a small line, then pivot again to sew down the right side of the slit. Our slit is done and it's looking great. Now we're going to move on to the waistband. I am first going to overlock or serge my top edge. You could use a zigzag on your sewing machine if you don't have an overlocker. This just closes up all the raw hems, makes it sit a little flatter and nicer on your stomach. Okay, we're back to the ironing board. We are done with the hem of the skirt. Now it's time to work on the waistband. What you'll need is your skirt inside out, your elastic that is cut to the measurement of your waist, plus 1 inch, and your measuring tape. So we're going to take the top of the waistband to the inside, or the bad side of the skirt. We're going to fold it over about 1.5 inches. What this does is it creates a tunnel. So once we sew along this line, this elastic is going to fit in the band. We're going to iron this down and pin it all the way around. So again, I'm going with about 1.5 inches to the very end of my serged edge. And you'll just continue to move along the waistband, measuring and ironing. Again, I did go with a 1 inch elastic. You could do something smaller if you'd like. I just thought it would feel nice on my waist to have something a little thicker. All right, we're going to take this to the sewing machine. We're going to sew and leave a little pocket. Start here and sew following this line. We're going to stop here, leave about 1.5 inch gap so we can wiggle that elastic in for our waistband. Starting right where we put that pin, we will do a forward and back stitch. And then sew all the way around, following as close to the edge of this folded fabric as you can. And then stopping at our second pin. Again, forward and back stitch just to hold everything in place. Now for the best part, take one of these guys and slide it through this hole and shimmy it through the tunnel. So I gather a little bit of fabric on the pin and then pull it through. I'm now back to where I started. This guy goes away. And now we've got our two ends of elastic. We're going to overlap them by about 1/2 inch. So this is why we did our waist measurement plus 1 inch, because of this excess piece that we're sewing together. You're going to move your sewing machine to a big zigzag. And we'll stitch this closed. Right down to our last step. I've pinned my elastic. Set the foot down. We're just going to sew forward and back. And then I like to move over a little bit and do one more row, just so you're getting both raw sides of the elastic. Trim out those little stringies. I said there was one more step, but there's actually another one. Evenly distribute the fabric over the elastic band. Oh, it's gonna be so cute. Last step is to sew our little hole closed. We're going to turn the machine back into a straight stitch, and then finding the spot where we stopped for our gap, put the needle down there, forward and back, and then straight line until we meet the other spot where we stopped for our gap. Time to try it on. Thanks so much for clicking on this video. If you've made it this far, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Mindful May for more DIY videos. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.